We will invite questions from our friends from the media. Okay, but before that, we would like to have a commemorative picture of the event. However, our secretary is being interviewed outside, so while we are waiting for Secretary de la Peña, if there are members of the press here, we can start entertaining your questions while our distinguished guests are still available and members of the team. So let's have a few questions from the media. Yes, ma'am. Do we have another microphone? Or ma'am, you can come forward. Please introduce yourself and address your question.
I'm Lynn Resurrection. I'm Lynn Resurrection, sir, from Business Mirror. And I have just a few questions. How is Maya-1 different from the Wata 1 and 2? How much is the budget for this? And what's really its use for the Philippines? Thank you.
The difference between Diwata 1, Diwata 2, and Maya-1, as you've seen also in the presentation earlier, is a different class of small satellite. It's called pico or / nano satellite, as opposed to pico / nano. It's the boundary because it's 1 kilogram weight. And Diwata 1 and 2 are micro satellites. Larger, therefore, hence more capable, because we can put in more sophisticated instruments in those larger satellites. However, pico satellites also are starting to offer viable scientific missions. For example, yung mga measurements that you saw, yung pag-measure ng reliability ng mga electronic components in space. Also, we can put a small camera in there, and we put radios for communication, pag-repeat ng messages. So useful yon in times of emergencies, for example, when we can communicate with a passing CubeSat, and it can relay the message over a larger area. Those are of course our targets, ma'am. Right now, with the CubeSat development, this being our first, it's still an experimental platform, but with the radios that it is carrying, we can use the radios for, number one, storing data on the CubeSat, and then it will pass over our mission control area, like here in Quezon City, download natin yung data. So yung data pwede nang kunin from remotely located sensors. So for example, maybe monitoring habitat ng Philippine eagle. If we put put transponders or transmitting devices on Philippine eagles, it can possibly communicate with the CubeSat, or maybe a ground station located near the habitat of the eagles can communicate with our CubeSat. And then that CubeSat will store the data. Pagdating ng Quezon City, mada-download po natin yung data. That's a very specific example, ma'am. Well, if we can develop a sensor for it that's compatible and we can transmit the data is agnostic to what kind of sensor, as long as it is within the capacity of the small satellite. Yes, ma'am. Well, it's entirely funded by DOST, the program. It's part of the Philippine Microsatellite Program. A CubeSat, as mentioned in a presentation by our friends from JAXA, is in the range of $0.5 million below. That's including the launch. In our case, it's somewhere less than that, about little over half of that, or maybe less than half of that is our cost. It's part of an academic program. 1 year. That's our expected target, yes. Okay. Any more questions from our friends? Yes, sir. Can you please, someone get the mic?
Yes, Virilio Galvez from Manila Shimbun. What other projects are you working with the Japanese government?
Marami, sir. Maybe I will ask our chancellor who can probably think of a couple of other projects. Space technology is just one. Yes, and I think there are many, sir. Sir, would you be...
Our Vice Chancellor for Research and Development is actually in Tsukuba right now. He would have the list. I wonder if Vice Chancellor Amor might remember some of the, besides this space.
Yeah, well, actually, Japan is, if I remember